Have you ever Googled your astrology sign and felt shocked at how accurate it was? Taken a personality test and realized it understands you better than you do? I'm about to explain to you why everything you've ever read about yourself is actually just complete bullshit. Generation Z, perhaps the most self-obsessed group to date, so bored and desperate to be unique that they've resorted to BuzzFeed quizzes and TikToks to provide them with a personality. Real talk, if I meet one more purple-haired Gemini hoe who thinks she's an empath for realizing I don't fucking like her, I'm gonna end up having to bang her mom. All facts aside, this fake identity epidemic poses a real hazard for our youth. This is because there's a very clear and significant impact that your perceived identity has on your behavior. Essentially, when someone attaches themselves to a label, there's a psychological tendency to behave in a way that reinforces that label. It works in the opposite way too, causing people to avoid any information or situations that threaten their sense of identity. This is called confirmation bias, something I've talked about at length in previous videos, so I won't go into detail here. But basically, the human brain just naturally curates its own echo chambers. And when you end up in certain echo chambers that constantly throw new and exciting labels at you, you may just end up picking some of them up. Let's not forget that there are really people out here opening an app, reading their horoscope, thinking it's a sign from the universe. Bitch, that shit was generated by AI. The horoscope could say, today you will be relieved of a heavy weight, and they really be walking out the bathroom after the morning poop like, it was right, I just lost 2 pounds. And what's even worse is when they use it to justify their bitchy behavior. Sorry if I came off as rude, Mercury is in retrograde, it's really affecting my rising. No, Stephanie, you're just a fucking cunt. These bitches be like, oopsies, and then blame their zodiac like, sorry, I'm an asparagus. Not only do people attach themselves to these vague descriptions they read online about their star sign, but they even make it a competition. Yes, I know, Zoomers are the only ones that could be elitist about the month they were born in. I'm a Gemini, so I'm extremely empathetic and hardworking. Oh yeah, Stephanie? Well, I'm a Pisces and we're the baddest bitches. Even though there's a plethora of people who believe in astrology, the numbers are incomparable to that of the amount of people who think there's legitimacy to personality tests. Let me let you in on a little secret. Myers-Briggs is just astrology for people who think they're smart. Not even the creators of the test believe that it's accurate. It's been scientifically proven to be bullshit. I'm an INFJ, so I'm like a creative, deep thinker, and I think long and hard, like my dick, about deep stuff. Didn't you drop out of high school? You don't get me. School wasn't made for creative people like me. Bro, all you had to do was turn in your homework assignments. It's not that deep. Both astrology and MTBI can be easily debunked by something known as the Barnum effect. The Barnum effect is a cognitive bias that occurs when individuals believe that generic personality descriptions apply to themselves, when in reality, the description is general and vague enough to apply to almost anyone. There was a study done at a university where an instructor claiming to be an expert in graphology collected all of the students' handwriting samples, claiming that he would study each of the students' individual handwriting and come to a conclusion about his or her personality. Essentially, he was like, hey, I'll guess your personality based on the way your handwriting looks. That was the claim. So each of the students turned in a little paragraph of their handwriting. Shortly after, each student received the personality description that the instructor had individually written. The students were told not to discuss their results with one another until filling out an assessment regarding whether or not they believed their description was accurate to their actual personality. Unsurprisingly, nearly all of the students claimed that the personality description was accurate. But here's the kicker. They all received the exact same ambiguous, vague personality description. Every single one of the students received the exact same result, and almost all of them believed that it applied to them individually. Look, humans are gullible creatures. We fall easily for compliments that satisfy our ego. One time, I fell in love with a chick because she told me I had a big dick. And I don't even have a dick. Pseudo-scientific psychological manipulation. That bitch knew how to get to me. These issues arise when our own cognitive bias puts faith in a pseudoscience that doesn't have any legitimacy. Our cognitive bias turns off our critical thinking skills. Our brain resorts to the system of thinking, oh, it sounds nice, it seems like it applies to me, it must be true. The human brain is so gullible. And it's important that we become aware of that fact so that we can check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. Another underlying issue we see with labels like MTBI and astrology is that we develop this unconscious belief that our character is stagnant. The general population seems to have this idea that personality is relatively set in stone and unchangeable, but this couldn't be further from the truth. The brain is plastic and extremely adaptable. Many of the psychological limits you have are entirely self-imposed. Just because your personality type says that you're shy doesn't mean that you have to be that way forever. Being charismatic and outgoing are qualities that you can develop. The same is true for basically any other personality trait that you can think of. It's important to note too that personality depends so much on your environment. One of the most common examples of this you've probably heard third is, I'm really shy at first, but I'm really outgoing around my close group of friends. This explicitly demonstrates the impact that environment has on your persona. In a room full of people you don't know, in an environment you've never been in, you're likely to display a completely different personality than you would if you were around your close group of friends. Context and environment dictates personality. It's not rocket science, and yet somehow people still hold the belief that their personality is consistent and stable. Although this happens among all age groups, Gen Z is especially vulnerable to it because of the identity confusion that plagues the age bracket. We can see in Erickson's stage of development that those aged 13 to 21, which is all of Gen Z, were in a state of identity versus confusion. Zoomers are in a period called identity moratorium, which is a stage of active exploration of various identities to find what fits. Don't get me wrong, I love roasting Gen Z. Could do it for hours, but as a member of Gen Z, I have a personal responsibility to at least acknowledge the timeline that we're on. Everyone loves to give us a hard time, but we're in a very fluctuating and confusing period of life. I'd honestly argue that the age bracket that Erickson gave of 13 to 21 is severely outdated. Considering we're waiting longer and longer to move out of our parents' house, to take on more responsibility, in general, we're just taking longer to grow up, which means these stages are all prolonged. Instead of 13 to 21, I'd argue this stage could last up to 25. People are gonna get mad at me in the comments for saying this, but I think all of this pronoun and sexuality stuff is really just a manifestation of identity moratorium. Zoomers are seeking labels in attempt to A, feel unique, and B, find a sense of stability about their identity, which are two common threads in this stage of development. We deadass have people calling themselves rats. There's only two possible explanations for that. One, schizophrenia, or two, identity confusion. These are it, it's, they, them, pervert, rats, what the fuck is going on? And speaking of schizophrenia, mental disorders have also somehow worked their way into this identity exploration. I'm seeing Zoomers try on different mental disorders like they're fucking Halloween costumes. Boo, haha, I'm autistic. This is my gamer girl split personality. I'm a psychopath. Great, and now I'm clinically depressed. I don't even think I need to explain how dangerously self-sabotaging some of these labels are. It's one thing to read on your personality type that you're caring and then perpetuate caring behavior, but it's a completely new level to self-diagnose with multiple personality disorder and start building alter egos. I think the primary reason why kids are clinging to these disorders is because it's a perfect aversion of responsibility. If you claim depression, suddenly your laziness and desire to lay in bed all day is perfectly justified. If you claim bipolar disorder, somehow your tantrums and impulsivity also become justified. If you claim autism, somehow your awkwardness and social anxiety is expected instead of shame. It's all one big attempt at trying to avoid responsibility. Look, I know I've been shitting on Gen Z the entirety of this video, but they're not the only ones doing this. It honestly hurts my brain to even consider that anyone older than a Zoomer would be curating their identity based off memes, but I know that the reality is that there's a growing number of people in all age brackets buying into these immature labels and pseudoscientific definitions. Gen Z is just undeniably more susceptible to it. Everyone wants to feel special, but the more you chase uniqueness, the further away you get from it. I really believe in human potential. With all this information at our fingertips, we have so much opportunity to gain a better understanding of our psychology and live a more fulfilling life. But instead, we resorted to these silly labels and shallow definitions that really do nothing but stun our growth. There's a reason the name of this channel is Finding Sky. It's because the process of self-discovery is lifelong. Yes, of course we surpass the stage of life where our primary focus is identity, but we're like Pokemon. We still keep evolving. Maybe a more accurate phrase would have been building sky, but this doesn't really have the same ring to it, does it? About to be Bob the Builder in this bitch. But in many ways, we do build ourselves. Yes, we're dealt a hand in life genetically and environmentally, but we still choose how to play the cards that we're dealt. What people don't like to hear is that it takes genuine introspection, self-awareness, and experiences to build yourself into someone worthy of being proud of. Your identity and search for meaning will not be found in any of modern day's quick fix labels. It's found and created through conscious action. Dummy.